Hey guys, DM Scotty here. Welcome to the DM's Craft. Good to have you with me again. As I promised with my tools video, I do a materials video. The materials I use to do the DM's Craft. There are a few things I may not cover in like little tidbits or whatever, but you know, sometimes there's found objects or that kind of thing you might use in your crafting. But for almost all the crafting, it's just this is the material I use for it. So this will be a nice overview for the materials you need, and or can move into as you need them. You don't have to get, really the only prerequisite for starting the craft is cardboard and cardstock. The other materials you can kind of move into as you need them. Let's go to the table and I'll show you the materials. First material I have here is our most basic. It's basically cardboard and cardstock. So I just want to talk about the different thicknesses and kind of show a comparison. So here's the thickness of a standard cardboard, and here is a thinner cardboard. You can see that. So you can kind of know the size difference between the two. You can see that this one has bigger corrugation, and this one has a smaller corrugation in it. And remember, when you cut, if you're cutting strips of this stuff out, you always want to cut against the corrugation. If you cut along the edge that has the corrugation, the strips will be very weak and they'll fall apart. But if you cut against it, so the corrugation is the length of the strip, the thin strip, it'll be much, much stronger. So you always want to make sure you do that. And then last but least, we have cardstock, and it's just a thin card. This is actually from just an envelopes box. You can use anything from donut boxes to cereal boxes to oatmeal boxes, you know, anything that's just made out of cardstock. A lot of times I get this kind of cardstock out of the bottom of boxes or that kind of thing. If you have a friend, a great place to get cardboard. If you have a friend that works at some store, just have them save big boxes for you, or cardstock. Just make them your cardboard friend, and they can collect that for you if you have a hard time getting it yourself. I mean, most people work somewhere where they at least get shipped some kind of boxes. So there's usually some selection of boxes, or even if you ship it to your own house, you get some selection of boxes. But those are the kind of differences. There's also a thicker cardboard, which I have used before. It's more like something like a refrigerator might be shipped in, and you could get that at actually like stores where they sell appliances. I'm not advocating dumpster diving, but you know, I have done it before, and it's a great place. They're throwing that stuff out. Hey, might as well utilize it for something useful instead of going to the landfill. So those are the types of cardboard, and now I'm going to move on to the next material. So here I have all kinds of wood. I've got a pack of basswood here that I got from a hobby store. I got these nice pieces of wood from a craft store. They're called woodsies, and they're just like almost like a coffee stir with the ends cut off. So these make great, you can use these for all kinds of things. These are like a little thinner version, more like coffee stirs. They have rounded edges of these woodsies here. And then these are just bamboo skewers. So I think I got this pack for $1. So, and it's just full of these. And so if you need portcullis or something like that, you can use these because they're so long. And just cut them off to length to where you want. And last but not least, get this open here, toothpicks. You can use these for all sorts of stuff. You've seen me use them in all kinds of crafts. Just break them off to the length you need them, and they work great. They're also handy for doing things like getting glue in a tight spot or something like that. And they're dirt cheap. So there you go, there's wood. Most of these are pretty cheap. You can get a pack of toothpicks for almost nothing. Like I said, I got these skewers for $1. These were a little more expensive, but not much. Maybe $1 or $2 for these packs. And the basswood was a little more expensive. I got it from a especially hobby retailer, but this is going to last me quite a while. I mean, it'll probably last me the rest of my crafting life because there's so many pieces of basswood in here. But you can buy them individually at most craft stores, balsa or basswood at most craft stores, and even some other big box stores. So there you go, there's wood, and I'm going to move on to the next material. So this is air dry clay. It's just Crayola air dry clay, nothing special. You don't have to bake it. You just shape it, and there you go. You can buy some really cheap clay tools at the craft store to shape it, or even just use some wooden sticks or toothpicks and that kind of thing to sculpt with. Excuse me. So this stuff is great because, like I say, you don't have to bake it. You can just pull it right out of there and make whatever you need. Now, I have used other clays before. I have used epoxy clays, which you mix the two together and they become rock hard, which are nice for modifying models. Not so good for doing the kind of crafts we're doing. And I also have made some models out of Sculptly and Super Sculptly, which is like a clay that you bake and it becomes hard. So that's a nice clay if you want to work on something that you want to leave out, because this will dry if you leave it out. So if you leave that out, it won't harden until you bake it. But I find this stuff is much cheaper, and it generally does the job. There's not too much that this stuff won't do. So this is a great little addition to your crafting. And if you're up for a little sculpting, this stuff is great. And so there you go. And we'll move on to the next material. This is probably going to be the most controversial of my my materials. It's fairly expensive. I think it's about 20 bucks for a jar like this, so it's not cheap. But you can do all kinds of nice textures with this stuff. And the thing I like about it is it's flexible. So you know, if your thing bends a little bit or whatever, because I've used it on cardboard and that has some give to it. And if it bends a little bit, then it won't just chip off. I've had some people say, well, you could use spackling compound and that kind of thing. And you can use that stuff. But it will tend to break off easier than this stuff. So you could go that route if it's something you feel won't get any kind of flex or bump into anything. But this stuff is flexible and strong, and it, you know, if you hit it or drop it or bend it, it's not going to break off. It'll flex with the object. So that's one thing I kind of like about this stuff. So, and this is not a mandatory thing. You've seen I've done a few crafts with this on my channel. I don't use it a lot. I use it a lot. I do use it for basing my miniatures, like you saw with the crocodile that I did. I do use it for that, but I don't use a lot for other than that. So this is probably going to last me a long time. This jar is going to last me a long time. So there's a material, you can get it or not, but I really like it, and it's something I'd recommend if you want to kind of take it to the next level. And so now we'll move on to the next material. And last but not least, I have our sand. Now what I've done is the sand comes in a big bag, and it's used for construction projects. Now they have the play sand and they have the standard sand. So you want to get the standard sand or the construction sand that they use in construction projects. Don't get the play sand because it's just sand and it'll just look like a glob when you use it. What I love about this sand, the regular sand, is it has all different sizes of pebbles and pieces of sand in it. So there's everything down to, from a sand grain to small pebbles. And that really gives a variance to the texture of the sand. It works great for rubble. It looks good on for areas where you're using it to have dirt and that kind of thing. So it just adds some variance to the texture and just gives it and makes it more interesting. Now, when you buy a bag, the problem with this stuff is when you buy a bag, it's, I don't know, a 40, 50 pound bag, something like that. So it's a big bag of sand. So what I do is I just store it in the garage. You could actually put it in a bucket or something like that if you wanted to. And then I just put it in a smaller container and then use it as I need it. So this is just a glass container I use to put the sand in. And then I use this little cup to pour it on my projects when I use it. So that will be something you'll have to deal with. You'll have to deal with storing that bag of sand. But that bag of sand will last you your entire crafting career. You'll never need another bag of sand. So some people have suggested to me that kitty litter could be a good substitute. Well, for one, this sand is dirt cheap, so this is probably actually cheaper than the kitty litter. But kitty litter is made out of clay. And for one, I found it doesn't stick very well with the craft glue, or any glue actually. It doesn't stick very well. It kind of floats on the glue instead of sinking into the glue and really adhering to the surface like the sand does. It also is very fragile. It's made of clay, so it breaks off very easily. So all your dry brushing, you know, and everything that you've done to it it's all going to break off and look like crap. So I would not recommend using cat litter for this kind of as a substitute for sand. I would just, you know, get the sand and use it. But I use this all the time. Like I say, a bag is only a few bucks, and it'll last you the rest of your crafting career. The only issue is somewhere to store it because it's a big bag. I've yet to find a really small one, so that is the only issue. So that concludes my materials. These are most of my projects I do. These are the materials I use. There may be times I may use other materials that I haven't said. Like sometimes I'll use some rope or something on a project, like twine as rope to give it a certain appearance, wrap it around or whatever. But in general, these are really all the materials that you'll need besides your cardboard and cardstock to really bring your stuff to life. And with this on top of the tools video, I hope I've helped new people to get into the craft and kind of realize what they need to work with. And I'll see you next time on the DM's Craft.